Today we are studying history lesson 2 from trade to territory, and this is of class 8th for CBSE board. So these are the important points which we are going to cover in this lesson. First is trading in Bengal, Battle of Plassey, which is one of the most important battle in the history of India. Next is Nawabs, company rule, Sultan of Mysore. Now you can see the title of the lesson. It is 100% appropriate for this lesson and for the Britishers. Initially they had come to India for the trade. Later on they started subduing the territories of the India, means they started capturing the territories. East India Company comes east. The company's name was East India just because it had to do trade with the eastern part of the countries which were situated on the globe, and India is one of the country which is on the eastern hemisphere of the globe. So Aurangzeb was the last powerful Mughal ruler. As I told you in the previous videos also, when you have to learn the names of the Mughal ruler, you need to learn one trick, that is Bhadshah, starting from Babur to ending at Aurangzeb. So Aurangzeb was not the last Mughal ruler. In fact, he was the last powerful Mughal ruler. Even after Aurangzeb's that, he had lot many successors, and they too had their successor, but they were not so able, they were not so capable, not even they had the power to handle this much large and vast empire of Mughals. So they are not to be mentioned anywhere in the history, and they are least important. So after Aurangzeb, the glory of Mughal empire, it went on declining. After the death of Aurangzeb in 1707, he died. The later rulers, means the successor of Aurangzeb, they proved to be inefficient. As I told, they were not so capable, they were not so brave, and they were not so powerful. And foreign powers, means the countries of the western side, and all the countries which are on the western side, they include all the countries of Europe and America. They had started eyeing on Indian continent, so they got the opportunities to establish their rule in India. You know, as long as the country is led by some strong ruler, no neighboring countries as well as no other country can dare to attack on that country. So as soon as the rulers they got weakened, all the countries they started thinking of capturing India, and this happened only after the death of Aurangzeb. During his reign, let us talk about Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb had ordered the destruction of more than 300 temples and some mosques also. You know, Aurangzeb, although he was very powerful ruler, but he was also a very orthodox Muslim. So he had never accepted the Hindu people in his territory. So wherever he had seen Hindu temples, he tried to destroy them to the fullest. So almost 300 temples were destroyed during his reign. Reign means the period of ruling. For example, the destruction of Vishwanath temple at Varanasi and Somnath temple of Gujarat are two of the best examples which were destroyed just by the order of Aurangzeb. Many Mughal governors, we have read about governors or subedar in the lesson, Delhi Sultans and Mughal emperor. So the subedars and big jamidars, they began asserting their authority and establishing their regional kingdoms. Means, suppose this person, Sadat Ali Khan, he was appointed governor of Awadh, means Lucknow. But when he saw that the ruler of Delhi, means the Mughal ruler, they are so weak and they are not paying any attention towards this territory, means Awadh or UP, so what he did, he declared himself as an independent ruler. He became the ruler of Awadh, and it happens when the ruler at the center, means central authority, if the ruler is weak, then the local rulers, they become strong. And the next one was Ashraf Jah. He was also one of the governor of Hyderabad. Hyderabad was such a large territory, and when he saw that Mughal rulers, now they are no more competent, they are no more powerful, then he also separated his territory from Mughal Empire and became the independent ruler of Hyderabad. Next is Murshid Quli Khan, and he was the governor of Bengal. Similarly, he also released him from the services of Mughal Empire. So these are the three governors. You need to remember that they started ruling independently on their own, and they detached themselves from the Mughal flag. First is Murshid Quli Khan, second is Sadat Ali Khan, third is Ashraf Jah. Ashraf Jah Hyderabad, Sadat Ali Khan Awadh, and Murshid Quli Khan Bengal. In 1600, the East India Company acquired a charter from the ruler of England, Queen Elizabeth I, granting it the sole right to trade with the East. At that time, the British was being ruled by the monarch, and she was the Queen of Britain that time. So, to do trade with any foreign countries, all the companies which are situated in Britain, first they had to take permission of the Queen. So, East India Company was the first company which took the permission of the Queen to trade, to do business with India. This meant that no other trading company from British will come or will go to India to do the trade. So the whole soul, what it will be called, rights, okay, the whole sole right to do trade with India went to the East India Company, and this is the event of 1600, and this is the sample of the charter which they had acquired from Queen Elizabeth I. East India Company bought goods at a cheap price and sold them at higher price in Europe. Actually, this is not the new thing. All the traders do such things only. So this company also bought all the goods from India at very cheap rate and sold them at very higher price in Europe, and this way they earn a lot of benefit, and the benefit of them, it make them more and more selfish. Next is mercantile trading. Companies in those days made profit primarily by excluding competitions so that they could buy cheap and sell all the items alone, means they had no competition. Now whenever we go to market to buy the phones, we have lot of options. We have Samsung, iPhone, Oppo, Vivo, okay, so we can choose from lot many brands, but that time they had no other competitor, so it was benefit in their time that they were doing business in their field all alone. So this is known as mercantile trading, means when you don't have any competitor in your field. The royal charter, royal means related to the king or queens, however, could not prevent other European powers from entering the eastern markets. Now let us talk about other European powers. There, Britain is not the only one country in the Europe. There are a lot of other countries also. There was Holland, there was Germany, there was France, there was lot many countries there were in Europe. Charter could not prevent other European countries from entering Indian subcontinent. By the time the first English ship sailed down the west coast of Africa. Earlier there was no Suez Canal, that's why all the ships of the European countries they used to sail from this long route to Indian subcontinent and other Asian countries. And this area, this coast is known as Cape of Good Hope, and all the ships they have to sail across here, and they require to take rest over this area. And the Portuguese they had already established their presence in the western coast of India. This is western coast means area of Kerala and Karnataka, and had their base in Goa. It means that they already had occupied the Goa region. See, this is Goa, so it was already occupied by the Portuguese. That's why even now, even at present time, you can see the traces of Portuguese architecture all over Goa, and the influence of the Portugal culture and tradition on Goa. In fact, it was Vasco da Gama, a Portuguese explorer. Now, who are the explorer? Are the people who keeps on moving and exploring new islands, new countries, new continents. So he had discovered this sea route to India in 1498. Which sea route I am talking about? I am talking about this sea route of Cape of Good Hope. So this the person, he belonged to Portugal, and this is the sea route which was discovered by him. So as you can see, these blue dotted area, they are the colonies of French. It means after Portuguese, French people they also had made their colonies in India. So slowly all the European countries they were attracting towards India. As you can see, this photo is speaking a lot. These are the Portuguese officials which are being uh, treated as the masters by the Indian people. This is the map of Indian subcontinent toward the southern port, southern side, and you can see these are all the colonies of all the countries of European subcontinent which had made their colonies or their settlement in these various points in India. And this plus sign is of English, so they had made their factory at Madras, they had their settlement at Bombay, Surat, Hooghly, and almost most of the places. Next is French settlement was also there in India, so all the European countries they were having an eye on our country. Next is Dutch settlement. Dutch means the people of Holland, they had also made their settlement in our country. Next is Danish. Danish means the people of Denmark. So almost everyone was there. This is English settlement, this is Danish settlement, French settlement, Portuguese settlement, and Dutch settlement. Dutch means people of Holland and Danish means people of Denmark. The problem was that all the companies were interested in buying the same thing. What was India famous for? India was famous for its fine quality of cotton and silk. As you can see, this is one of the images of one of the empress of India, and she is wearing such a nice and glossy silk attire. The fine qualities of cotton and silk was so popular in European countries that all the companies were eyeing on the same material, and it had a big market in Europe. Apart from that, pepper, cloves, cardamom, and cinnamon, these are the spices which were also in great demand in European countries because they had been introduced to these spices only when Vasco da Gama he had taken all these ships, sorry, all these what these are spices to his country Portugal. To secure market, therefore led to fierce battles between the trading company and sometimes with arms, and trading posts were protected through the fortification. Now what started happening, the all these companies, they started doing clashes with each other. They had started keeping their small armies also with them, and gradually they started making forts at their company's place, and those forts gradually started expanding the areas, and they also started increasing the number of soldiers in their army to protect their territory, means to protect their business area, so that the other company should not interrupt or come into the area of range of their area. They had started doing war with the other European countries. The first English factory was set up on the banks of river Hooghly. You know, Hooghly river is in Calcutta, and that was in the year 1651. By 1696, it began building a fort around the settlement. Now see, earlier they had only established one factory, but now to protect their factory they started making a fort around the factory. You know, there's difference between factory and a fort. Fort is a place where you install and where you place your soldiers, and those soldiers, they guard your area or your territory. So fort is entirely a different building. It is required only for the security purpose, but factory is required for production. And 2 years later, it bribed Mughal officials into giving the company jamidari rights over 3 villages. So it started how it bribed Mughal officials so that Mughal official would help them to get the rights of getting jamidari of 3 villages from the Mughal emperor, and somehow they were successful in it and they got it. See, this is rear view of the East India Company's factory at Kasim Bazar. Kasim Bazar, again it is in Calcutta. So this is the building, it is still there. One of these was Kalikata. Earlier Calcutta was known as Kalikata, which later grew into the city of Calcutta or Kolkata as it is known nowadays. So earlier the name started from Kalikata. Thereafter the Britishers, they could not pronounce it well, so they pronounced it Calcutta, and nowadays it has been renamed as Kolkata. It also persuaded means they forced the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb to issue a farman granting the company the right to trade duty free. Duty free means they need not to pay any tax to the rulers or any other governor of the territories, Indian territories. And somehow they convinced Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb, and Mughal Emperor was also convinced, and he gave them the order of doing duty free trade in India. Apart from this, the official of the company who were carrying on private trade on the side by side. First, they are the official of East India Company. So when they had come from Britain to India, they had come to look after the profit of only their company. But when they reached India, they saw there is a lot of profit in the business. So apart from doing business for their company, they also started doing business for their own. So they started making profit from two sides. Are you getting it? Once, though, they are getting salaries from the British East India Company. Secondly, they are earning profit from their own business. Now see the difference. When they are doing trade for the company, they need not to pay tax. But when they are doing trade on their own, then as an individual they had to pay tax. This they refused to pay, causing an enormous loss of revenue for Bengal. Bengal's trade was such an profitable business that all the Nawabs of the Bengal, they used to get a large amount of tax from the traders only. But now when all the British officials they stopped giving tax, it caused a loss to Bengal. So how could the Nawab of Bengal Murshid Quli Khan not protest? How he could allowed all the people of British officials to do trade, that too without paying tax? So after the death of Aurangzeb, Murshid Quli Khan became Nawab of Bengal, and he was followed by Ali Vardi Khan and then Sirajud-Dowla. Each of one each one of them was a strong ruler. So this is the chronology. First Murshid Quli Khan, thereafter Ali Vardi Khan, and thereafter Sirajud-Dowla. Now they refused to grant the company concession. So these three rulers they denied to give any concession or any what it is called relaxation in the tax to the company officials. Britishers they demanded large tribute for right to trader and stopped it from extending its fortification. So these are four things which these three Nawabs they did for the British official. First they demanded large tributes, means large amount of money for getting the right to trade. Okay. Second, they stopped all the British officials or the British East India Company from extending its fortification. Earlier its fort and its factory was at Kasim Bazar, but slowly they were making their factories at other places also, which was stopped by the Nawabs of Bengal, and they denied it any right to mint coins. The conflict led to the famous Battle of Plassey, and when both the sides they did not agree at each other's uh, point, then they started to go for the Battle of Plassey. How trade led to battles. When Ali Vardi Khan died in 1756, Sirajud-Dowla became the Nawab of Bengal. The company was worried about his power and wanted a puppet ruler. So, what do you mean by puppet ruler? Puppet ruler is a person who could act as per the wish of their masters. Suppose Britishers and the East India Company they are the masters, so they wanted such a ruler who could do whatever they want him to do. After negotiation failed, the Nawab marched with 30,000 soldiers to the English factory that was situated at Kasim Bazar. Now we had come to Battle of Plassey, which had occurred in 1757. So with 30,000 soldiers, Nawab Sirajud-Dowla he captured the company's officials and he captured this factory also. He locked the warehouse. Warehouse means the storehouse of the British company, and he disarmed all Englishmen. Disarm means he took all the arms and weapons of the Englishmen and blockade English ships, and all the ships which were coming on the port he stopped them, he blocked them. So this was the first victory by Nawab Sirajud-Dowla on Britishers. Then he marched to Calcutta to establish control over the company's fort there. So there was one more fort of Britishers in Calcutta also. Company official in Madras sent forces under the command of Robert Clive, reinforced by naval fleet. So this person he is Robert Clive, and he came from all the way Madras to Calcutta with a large fleet of soldiers to stop the victory of Nawab Sirajud-Dowla. In 1757, Robert Clive he led the company's army, means he was from the company's side and he was the commander of British company, and he fought against Sirajuddaulah at a place which is known as Plassey. One of the main reasons for the defeat of the Nawab was what? It was that the forces led by Mir Jafar. And who was Mir Jafar? He was one of the very reliable and able commander of Sirajuddaulah. But he betrayed him. Betrayed means he cheated on him and he never fought the battle with all his troop. So this was a setback for Nawab Sirajuddaulah because he had a full confidence on his commander, but his commander did not pay attention and pay heed to his commands during the time of need. Clive had managed to secure his support by promising to make him Nawab after crushing Sirajuddaulah. So, what trick Robert Clive had played here? He had already managed to make that person, who is he? He is Mir Jafar. He had promised him that when you will help me, then we together will kill and defeat your Nawab Sirajuddaulah, and you will be the Nawab of Bengal. The Battle of Plassey became famous because it was the first major victory of the company won in India. Before this, they were fighting with each other only, means one European country was fighting with another European country. But this was the first war where European country was fighting with an Indian ruler. So this is one of the vast picture of Battle of Plassey, as this is the data of both the armies. The Bengal army, it had this many cavalry, infantry. Cavalry means when you ride on horses or elephants, that troop is known as cavalry. Infantry are the soldiers who walk. And this is the data of the Robert Clive's army. They although were very less in number, but they proved very skilled. In the Battle of Plassey, the forces of Nawabs were defeated and Nawab fled. Fled means he ran away from the battleground, and finally he was killed by Mir Jafar's son. And so this was the pathetic end of Nawab Sirajuddaulah, although he fought very bravely till he alive. The faithful commanders of Nawab were Mir Madan and Mohan Lal. As you can see, they both are Hindus. The right arm of the army was commanded by Rai Durlab, center by Yar Lutuf Khan, and left by Mir Jafar. And they all three proved traitors. Traitors means cheaters. The Nawab's army had attacked vigorously in the beginning, but there was rainfall at night, which led the ammunition. Ammunition means all the weapons and gunpowder. Gunpowder was used to put inside the gun in earlier times, and Nawab drenched while the British used tarpaulins to protect their ammunition. So all the Nawab's gunpowder and all the arms were kept in the open, so he did not pay any attention while it rained at night, and he did not take effort to cover them. Whereas the Britishers, they covered all their arms and gunpowder with tarpaulins. So what happened next morning when they were fighting? So all the drenched gunpowder of the Nawab, it did not work. However, all the dry gunpowder of the Britishers, they worked perfectly, and this way they were able to take over the army of Nawab. Nawab tried to reconcile with Mir Jafar, but he did not turn up. So these are the three important figures, important person of this Battle of Plassey. First was Robert Clive. He was from the British East India Company side. Sirajuddaulah, who was the Nawab of Bengal, and Mir Jafar, the traitor, who later was made Nawab of Bengal after defeating and killing Sirajuddaulah. Now next is Battle of Buxar, which was held in 1764, when Mir Jafar protested and refused to act as a puppet. Because why Mir Jafar had cooperated with Britishers so that Britishers would make him the governor of Bengal or the Nawab of Bengal. But once he was made Nawab of Bengal, then he got fed up of every time the demand of the Britishers to get more and more money from him. The company deposed him and installed Mir Qasim in his place. So what company did when he refused to obey and refused to act as a puppet government of the British official, he was deposed, means he was removed from his seat, and his son-in-law Mir Qasim was made Nawab in his place. When Mir Qasim also complained about the too much of the British East India Company pressure on them, he was also defeated in the Battle of Buxar, that was in 1764, and he was driven out of Bengal. And Mir Jafar, he was again reinstalled on the throne of Bengal. So the Battle of Buxar was fought between these people. Nawab Sujauddaulah, he was from Awadh. Nawab Shah Alam II, he was Mughal Emperor of Delhi, and Nawab Mir Qasim, he was of Bengal. The army of these three people, it consisted of 40,000 plus soldiers, and versus British East India Company, which was led by Hector Munro, whereas they were having only 10,000 of soldiers. The Battle of Buxar 1764. Why did it occur? The Nawab had to pay rupees 5 lakh every month to the company, but company was forcing them to pay more money. After the death of Mir Jafar in 1765, the mood of the company had changed. Now it does not want any money from the Nawab. They want the territories of the Bengal so that they can earn more revenues by becoming Nawabs themselves instead of installing or making someone else Nawab. So Robert Clive declared, "We must indeed become Nawabs ourselves instead of making others Nawab." So their greed has increased. Now they were eyeing on becoming Nawab of the Indian territories. Company officials became nabobs. Now what this nabob word is? Finally in 1765 the Mughal emperor appointed the company as the Diwan of the provinces of Bengal. The Diwani allowed the company to use the vast revenue and resources of Bengal. Bengal's land is very fertile, and apart from that there is a rich port situated near the Calcutta, which was used for trading by all the Indian territories. But it had to buy most of the goods in India with gold and silver imported from Britain. This was because at this time Britain had no goods to sell in India. Then what they started doing? Company officials become nabobs. What did it mean to be nawabs? It meant, of course, that the company acquired more power and more authority. But it also meant something else. Each company servant began to have vision of living like nawabs because they had seen the royal life luxuries of a nawab's life, nawab's palace. So even a tiny or a petty official of the East India Company, he was dreaming of becoming nabob. Robert Clive, when he had come to Madras at the age of 18, when in 1767 he left India, his Indian fortune was worth pound 401102. It was of that time. Interestingly, when he was appointed governor of Bengal in 1765, he was asked to remove corruption from the company official and company administration, but he himself was included and indulged and involved in this corruption that when he returned to his country in 1772, British Parliament acquitted him guilty and he finally committed suicide in 1774 in his own country. And this is Clive's house or Fort St. George, which is located in Chennai, where Robert Clive he used to live. Those who managed to return with wealth, they led very fleshy and royal life, and they flaunted means they did show off from with their wealth. In Britain, they were called nabobs, an anglicized version of the Indian word nawab, because the Britishers they were unable to pronounce this word nawab properly, so they used to call all the officials of East India Company who had returned from India with large amount of money to Britain, and they were living a very rich life in Britain. And finally the local people of Britain they started calling them nabobs. Next is subsidiary alliance, which was introduced by Lord Wellesley. Now, what is it? From 1757 to 1857 means almost 100 years. The company used a variety of political, economic, and diplomatic method to extend its influence. The company forced the state into a subsidiary alliance. What is it? As per this alliance, Indian rulers were not allowed to have their independent armed force. So, as you can see, when you are in the hands of some other ruling countries, you ca- you cannot have the wish of your own, and then you have to do whatever your masters or your rulers are forcing you to do. So, this alliance was also a stupid alliance which they were forcing on the Indian rulers. How come the Indian rulers are not allowed to have their armed forces? As per our knowledge, as much as we know about the history, all the rulers they are supposed to keep an army with them so that the army can protect their territory. So what happened? When the rulers they were not keeping the armies, they were to be protected by the company, but in return of this protection they had to pay a large amount of money to the British East India Company. So this is all about this subsidiary alliance, and when they failed to make the payment, their territories were taken as the penalty or as the fine by the East India Company. So Awadh and Hyderabad were the two first territories who failed to pay amount to the East India Company, and their territories were taken away by the East India Company. The Nawab of Awadh, Sirajuddaulah, with his sons and British officials leaving the palace. Tipu Sultan, the Tiger of Mysore. Mysore had grown in strength under the leadership of two powerful leaders, Hyder Ali, who ruled from 1761 to 1782, and thereafter his famous son Tipu Sultan, who ruled from 1782 to 1799. Mysore, right now it is in present time Karnataka. Mysore controlled the profitable trade of the Malabar coast. As you can see, this is Malabar coast, and whosoever used to control this coast, he used to earn a huge profit because all the trading ships they used to pay taxes to the rulers. Where the company purchased pepper and cardamom. In 1785, what happened? Tipu Sultan stopped the export of sandalwood, pepper, and cardamom through the ports of his kingdom and disallowed local merchants from trading with the company. Now, what will happen? Now, four wars were fought between Britishers and Mysore's, and these four wars are famously known as the Anglo-Mysore Wars, 1767 to 69. Thereafter, 1780 to 84, 1709 to 92, and finally in 1799. And in this last battle, Britishers they won the battle of Srirangapattam. This is the place where this battle took place against Mysore. Tipu Sultan was killed defending his capital Srirangapattam. Mysore was placed under the former ruler dynasty of Wadiyar. Wadiyar, they agreed to become the puppet ruler of the British East India Company. As you know what puppet ruler is, do who does as per the wish of their master. This is one of the picture where Tipu Sultan is handing over his sons to British official as ransom, because British official had asked a great amount of money from Tipu Sultan, and it is being said that within 1 or 2 months he had managed to give away that ransom price to the Britishers and brought back his both sons. The legend of Tipu. Kings are often surrounded by legend and stories of their power through folklore. Here is a legend about Tipu Sultan, who became the ruler of Mysore in 1782 after his father's death. It is said that once he went hunting in the forest with a French friend. There he came face to face with a tiger. His gun did not work, and his dagger also fell down to the ground. This is dagger which fell down to the ground. He battled with the tiger unarmed. Unarmed means without any arm. With hands he fought with the tiger until he managed to reach down and picked up the dagger. Finally, he was able to kill the tiger in the battle, and only after killing this battle, after this incident, he was came to be known as the Tiger of Mysore, and he had the image of the tiger on his royal flag also. This is one of Tipu's very famous toy which is being taken away by the Britishers to their countries when they left India. And this is the picture of a big mechanical toy that Tipu possessed. Here you can see this is Indian lion, means Tipu Sultan, who is almost killing and eating the neck of a Britishers. This is the magnificent view of Mysore Place. It was the royal seat of Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan both. Now half of its portion is being used as the government office. And this is the night view of Mysore Palace. And this is inside view of Mysore Palace. Such a magnificent architecture they have done. And this is the current queen of Mysore, Maharani Pramoda Wadiyar, whose ancestors they worked there as puppet kings. Next is war with Maratha. Maratha means the people who live in Maharashtra. From the late 18th century, the company also sought to destroy Maratha power, because Maharashtra was also emerging as a powerful country, a powerful territory. With their defeat in the Third Battle of Panipat in 1761, the Marathas' dream of ruling from Delhi was shattered. You know, all the Maratha rulers, they were combined under the flag of Shivaji the Great. But after getting defeat in the last battle of Panipat, so there all the visions of capturing India and making the whole India under the Indian rule was also destroyed. They were divided into many states under different chiefs or different sardar. So one Maratha dynasty is divided into many dynasties. Like Sindhya, they started ruling in Gwalior. Indore was ruled by Holkar. Baroda was ruled by Gaikwad, and Satara was ruled by Bhosle. These chiefs were held together in a confederacy under a Peshwa principal minister, who became its effective military and administrative head, based in Pune. Mahaji Sindhya and Nanaji Fadnis were two famous Maratha soldiers and statesmen of the late 18th century. This is Jal Vilas Mahal, the current residence of the Sindhya family, and he is the Successor of the Scindia family, Jyotiraj Scindia. These are the successor and present time ruler of Gaikwad family. Although there is no dynasty, no monarchy in any part of the country, but still they are just getting their pension as a ruler of these dynasties from government of India. This is one combined picture of Bhosle family, and the Marathas were subdued in a series of war. In the first Anglo-Maratha War that ended in 1782, with the Treaty of Salbai, there was no clear victory, means no side won the war, neither the Marathas nor the East India Company. Now let us talk about the second Anglo-Maratha War, which was carried out during 1803 to 1805. It was fought on different fronts, resulting in the British gaining Odisha and the territories north of the Yamuna River, including Agra and Delhi. So these two regions were taken by East India Company from Marathas. And finally, the third Anglo-Maratha War of 1817 and 19, it crushed the Maratha power whole. The Peshwa was removed and sent away to Bithur near Kanpur with a small amount of pension. The company now had complete control over the territories south of the Vindhyachal range. The claim of paramountcy, what is it? Under Lord Hastings, who was the Governor General of India from 1813 to 1823, a new policy of paramountcy was initiated. Now the company claimed that its authority was paramount. Paramount means supreme, means it is the only supreme authority in India. No other ruler, whether they are Peshwa, whether they are Nizam, whether they are uh, governors or Nawab of any territory, is superior than them. So they are the only paramountcy of India, and no other power is greater than their power. When Britishers tried to annex the small state of Kittur, that is in Karnataka, then Rani Chinnamma took to arms and led an anti-British resistance movement. She was arrested in 1824 and died in prison in 1829. So this is to mention that all sort of people, whether they had great territories, whether they had small territories, they tried their best to defeat and to stop the victory of British East India Company. In the late 1830s, the East India Company became worried about Russia. It imagined that Russia might expand across Asia and enter India from the northwest. As you know, on the northwest side there are Jammu Kashmir, Punjab regions are there. So in Europe, what was happening, due to large number of capturing others' territory, Russia had become a large superpower of that time. So Britishers were of the fear that they might enter India and all their profit earning business would come to an end. So what they did, driven by this fear, the Britishers now want to secure their control over the northwest. Northwest means all the region of Punjab and Sindh. They fought a prolonged war with Afghanistan between 1838 and 1842 and established indirect companies rule there. It means they also captured Afghanistan. Sindh was also taken over in 1843. Next in line was Punjab. Next in line was Punjab, but the presence of Maharaja Ranjit Singh feared the British East India Company and they did not dare to look at Punjab. But after the death of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, his sons were not so able who could protect their countries, and finally Sikh kingdom was annexed, and ultimately 1849 Punjab was annexed. And this is the picture of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. Next is the doctrine of lapse. It is very notorious policy which was introduced by Lord Dalhousie, who was Governor General of India from 1848 to 1856. Now, what this doctrine of lapse is? It means if any Indian ruler dies without a male heir means a son, without a son, then his kingdom would automatically become the part of British territory. One kingdom after another was annexed simply by applying this doctrine. Satara 1848, Sambalpur 1850, Udaipur 1852, Nagpur 1853, and Jhansi 1854. How could you forget the great battle of Jhansi and Britishers, where Maharani Lakshmi Bai fought till her last breath to protect her Jhansi. Finally, in 1856, the company also took over Awadh. Awadh was such a large territory that too also was taken over by the Britishers. But here, Awadh Nawab was having many sons. In spite of that, how come the Britishers they were able to get it? Now here they gave and some other excuse. They said they were obliged by duty, means the duty called them to do this, to take over Awadh, because they want to free the people from the misgovernance of the Nawab, because he was an incapable and not so well in dealing with the people. That's why they had removed the Nawab of Awadh, Nawab Wajid Ali Shah. Enraged means angered by this humiliating way in which the Nawab was disposed, the people of Awadh, under the leadership of Begum Hazrat Mahal, joined the great revolt that broke out in 1857, which is also known as the First War of Independence. Now you can see expansion of British rule. This yellow portion is in 1797. So only this many territories were captured by Britishers in 1797. Thereafter in 1840, see, their territories have started increasing, and 1857 almost 70% of Indian territories Britishers have captured. Setting up a new administration, Warren Hastings, who was the Governor General from 1773 to 1785, he played very important role in the expansion of company's power. By his time, the company had acquired power not only in Bengal but also in Madras and Bombay Presidency. Now British territories they have increased. Now how will they administer, how will they rule all the territories? Now see here, one good thing about the Britishers is that just because of them all the rulers and all the Nawabs and kings and princes of India they came under only one flag. Otherwise they all were setting up their separate territories, separate nation. So everybody was separate, they were not united. But here now Britishers helped all the Indian people to get united against one enemy, that was Britishers, right? Now let us talk about their administration, how they used to run all those presidencies. So for the ease up of their administration, like at present we have 28 states in our country, it means union government has distributed power to 28 state governments so that all the states should be run efficiently. Similarly, at that time also India was divided into three very big presidencies. One was Bengal, second is Bombay, and third is Madras. And each presidency was ruled by a governor, means there were three governors in India but only one governor general, because all these three governors they worked under the governor general, and Warren Hastings he was the first governor general of India, and he also introduced various social reforms in the field of justice also, means he made lot of laws and rules for the country. From 1772, a new system of justice was established. Each district was to have two courts. One was a criminal court dealing with odd sorts of murder, killing, and it was known as Fauzdari Adalat, and it was kept under a Qazi or a Mufti. Next was a civil court, means small and petty quarrels. These types of cases were handled in this court, and this was known as Diwani Adalat. To bring about uniformity means common for everyone, means in 1775, 11 Pandits, they were asked to compile a digest of Hindu laws. They were asked that what is all about Hindu laws, means how the marriages are taking place, how one can leave his wife or her husband. So all these things they required to tell to the British judge. So while doing justice to Indian people, he should not be unaware of the facts. Similarly, the same thing was also asked from the Muslim community, and 1778 Muslim also they compiled the laws of Muslim community and handed it over to the British judges. Next is under the Regulating Act of 1773, a new Supreme Court was established in Kolkata, and earlier this was known as Sadar Nizamat Adalat. The principal figure in an Indian district was the collector. Now, as the title suggests, the main job of the collector was to collect. Collect what? Collect revenues and taxes from his area, and apart from that, he has to maintain law and order in his area. And for doing this, he is not alone. He is supported by judges, police officers, and darogas of his area. His office, the collectorate, it became the new center of power and patronage. This is one insight view of the office of collector, and you can see all the position holders, people of authority, they meet here, they discuss the things and other sort of things about the city. His office, the collectorate, it became the new center of the power, and while doing his job, he is helped by the other police officers and judges of the district. The Mughal army was mainly composed of cavalry who were known as Sawars, means trained soldiers on horseback. And there was one more unit, it was known as infantry, means Pedal Sainik, who used to walk on foot. They were given training in archery, tirandaji, and the use of sword, means talwar. The East India Company adopted the same method when it began recruitment for its own army, which came to be known as the Sepoy Army. It, this Sepoy word was taken from the Indian word Sipahi, which meant soldier. A warfare technology changed from 1820s. Earlier the soldiers they used to fight with swords and other handmade instruments. Now they have started using these types of musket and matchlocks. They were almost the initial models of present time guns. The soldiers of the company's army had to keep pace with changing military requirements. Now they are no more fighting with hand to hand, they are fighting with weapons and modern arms. Soldiers were increasingly subjected to European style of training, drill, and discipline that regulated their life far more than before. Now, earlier they were wearing Indian style of clothes, now they had to wear the dresses and uniform as per as the wish of their masters, means British officers. So they were now wearing westernization clothes, and sometimes they were unwilling to wear such cloth, but still they have to wear just because the order of their commanders. And this forceful command was creating a sense of unrest, means they were not comfortable with these dresses, these instruments, sorry, these weapons, but still they were following the order. Slowly it became an unrest, means a tension or a cause of depression within their brains. Conclusion. Thus, the East India Company was transformed from a trading company to a territorial colonial power. Colonial power means when the countries, they establish few or small colonies in some other countries to do trade. But slowly and gradually they increase their power and capture whole of the nation. The arrival of the new steam technology in the early 19th century also speeded up this process. Till then, it would take 6 to 8 months to travel India by sea from Britain. Okay, it was taking 6 to 8 months. But when steam ships were introduced, the journey was reduced only to 3 weeks, means only within 21 days they were arriving in India from Britain, and it enabled many British officers to bring their families to India. And by 1857, company came to exercise direct rule over about 63% of Indian territories and 78% of the Indian population. So as you can see, in the beginning of this lesson we had talked about the Farman or the charter of the British East India Company, which they had acquired from the Queen Elizabeth I to trade in India. So from trading in one part of Bengal or Calcutta, now see, they are the owner or the master of our country. So this is the end of the lesson. Very interesting lesson it is. You need to go through the lesson one more time if you want to understand it better. So these are some important question of the lesson. If you find it difficult to answer them, you can again watch the video. This video is not only for the beneficial of your study, it is going to help in your career examination also. Very beneficial video for IAS and PCS exams. So this is the end of the video. Please like our video and do subscribe our channel, Wow Education.